Okay, our next panel is absolutely fantastic. And I really can't wait for you to hear the story behind this supplement, what's in it, why they did what they did. So you're going to hear from Dr. Daniel and also Oonagh O'Hagan in just a moment. And about the response and everything that they've had so far. But we're also going to be joined by a lady who I think needs very little introduction, Tricia Lewis. And Tricia is going to talk about how she began her transformation. And I love to follow and see Tricia in person because she just has a glow. She lights up every room she walks into. And that is the real transformation. So even though we've heard all this information, I know there'll still be some of us thinking, oh, well, I'm too busy and I'm too stressed. And how can I really make small changes in my life for my health? And Tricia is definitely the poster girl for how you can do that. So let's invite them to the stage. Oonagh O'Hagan, Tricia Lewis and Dr. Daniel Jones. Yes.
Thank you, Claire.
Now, my dear. So we'll start with you.
Okay.
And you are the busiest woman on the planet, it has to be said. And you're celebrating now, how many years of Meaghers Pharmacy?
25 years. That's 25 years since I bought it, yeah. But Meaghers has actually been there since 1921 on Bagot Street. So I had the absolute privilege and you know, to work with Pierce Meagher. He was my mentor at the time, but his mum owned that pharmacy and they lived above it on Bagot Street. And then he inherited from his mum. I ended up working with Pierce. And then 4 years later, in 2001, I was lucky enough to be given the opportunity to purchase it. So I've never changed the name of Meaghers. And at that stage, it was just one single pharmacy, a traditional pharmacy, but doing incredible work within the community. And he taught me everything I know about community pharmacy. And so I was never going to change the name. So now obviously we have 10 pharmacies and an online business, and we look after customers all over the world and 80 different countries all over the world, but also the length and breadth of Ireland. And I just want to say thank you to so many people who have come from the length and breadth of Ireland to tonight, who have said hello, and I really appreciate you taking the time out to actually travel here. And to support At One, like you said, it was overwhelming support from the first day that we launched. We just only did a soft launch online. Nobody had tasted it. To think that people were purchasing from the first day without even tasting it and even knowing what was in it was just mind-blowing. So myself and Daniel, I cannot tell you how grateful we are for the trust. Trust.
Well, people do really trust you, Oonagh, because not only have you built such a brilliant, reliable brand in Meaghers Pharmacy, but you really still believe in that community element. Talk to us a bit about Pharmacy 360, because I think that really shows who you are and what you are. You're not just there to sell pharmaceuticals or products in the shop. You really want to make a difference in people and how they feel.
Yeah, well, Pharmacy 360 is a concept, and it's so interesting to listen to the first panel, because it's basically built on that. It's about integrative health, really. You know, we work in pharmacy, and when everybody thinks of pharmacy, you think of a place where you go to when you're sick, yeah? But it's about reactive care, a pill for every ill, you know, something that's going to give me some relief to actually, you know, improve my condition. Pharmacy 360 is about preventative care, and it is about integrative health. And what we mean by that is, you know, a pill will do absolutely. It'll take down your cholesterol, like Mary said. It'll, you know, improve your diabetes. It'll, you know, there's different pills for different things. But actually, where the real magic happens is whenever you change your lifestyle, yeah, and you use that along with medications, or maybe you don't. What we're trying to do is actually get people before they get sick by changing their lifestyle, so that you never actually need medication. So when we talk about Pharmacy 360, it is this 360 approach, this holistic approach to health. And it was so interesting, all the panelists talked about this. It's about nutrition, it's about movement, and I use the word movement instead of exercise because so many people are so scared of the word even exercise. It is about sleep. And this is why myself and Daniel are so passionate about sleep, because people think you just close your eyes and you know it off and then you wake up again. But so much happens in your body when you sleep. It is about stress management, and I think it was Mary maybe mentioned it, and I know Dr. Bobart, she's my GP, and she's an amazing GP, and she tries to get me to do yoga all the time, and I'm so bad. But I'm a firm believer in deep breathing and meditation every single day, and it has changed my life, that meditation, because it kept me sane, really, to be honest with you. That's the 4 elements, plus the 5th element is connections, yeah? And I mean by connections is connections, number 1, to your friends and family and your community. You talk about community pharmacy is about connections within the local community. It's the connections you have in the environment. And I see Pat Kane here, and she talks a lot about, how you connect to, the environment, and there's so much in that sphere. And actually, it is connections to yourself. And Mary always talks about this. Do you put yourself first? Do you love yourself enough to actually make these changes in the first place? So it is about connections. And when you look at changing those things, and I have seen it firsthand myself, somebody may come in for high blood pressure or high cholesterol. Somebody may come in for, maybe an antidepressant medication. If you can help that person by changing their lifestyle as well as the medicine, that's where the real magic happens. And if you can get people early, they may never need medication in the first place. So it is about having that proactive, preventative approach. And that's what we believe in. And just really changing the dial away from sickness and Mars and much more towards health. So you view a pharmacy as a place you go to for health advice and maybe products and screening and, all the other things to stay well, as opposed to the place you only go to whenever you're sick.
And that's why we trust you and love you. But as I said, you are busy. Like, Oonagh is always a yes person. If you ask Oonagh for a favour, she's like, yeah, no problem. And you are that person. And
Mary gives out to me all the time for that. All the time.
You're up and down the road to your family. I know your own family, your husband and kids are paramount to everything that you do, all of your staff. So you're always on the go. So where in the world do you think, you know what, I need to bring out a supplement now with Daniel?
To be honest with you, there's never any right time in any of this, but I have known Daniel for, I'm going to say 15 years, Daniel. We've been buddies, about 15 years, and we are, I might not look like a nerd, but I am a nerd, yeah? And we always, every time we talk, Daniel trained me, actually, on the Revive portfolio, because Daniel, formulated a lot of the Revive products. So he actually trained me in that. We connected. He's an amazing person. Like, he's just so knowledgeable. And we've met many times over different brands that you've worked with over the years. And the big thing about Daniel is he has a PhD in inflammation. And I also trained here in Trinity in pharmacy, obviously, and not medicine, because I'm petrified in needles, isn't that right? Dr. Bobart, I have to still lie down every time I get needles, so I couldn't do medicine. I changed at the very last minute and dropped out, changed my place into pharmacy. Anyway, I studied here, and I was lucky enough that Professor Luke O'Neill was one of my lecturers, and I was absolutely obsessed and enthralled by inflammation when I was here. I had a huge curiosity about it, and I always knew it was the absolute root cause of so many chronic diseases. And I have seen firsthand, over 30 years in working in community pharmacy, different conditions increasing in terms of prescribing. Somebody mentioned multiple sclerosis earlier, MS, Parkinson's, motor neuron disease. Right? One of my best friends died of motor neuron disease on his 50th birthday. Yeah? We never, when I first qualified, dispensed medications for younger generations with those conditions. I have seen in the last 30 years how prescribing has increased for these conditions, but actually how prescribing has increased in the younger demographic for these conditions. Yeah? And there is absolutely no doubt in my mind 100% it is linked to the way that we are living. It is linked to our nutrition. It is linked to our stress. Yeah. Again, somebody mentioned about, stress, high cortisol, high adrenaline. You're constantly in sympathetic nervous state. It is absolutely causing huge inflammation in our body. And we cannot get out of that unless you get into parasympathetic nervous state. It's the yin and the yang. So that is why meditation, deep breathing, and so on and so forth absolutely works to take down those hormones so that you can get into that parasympathetic state. So I have seen firsthand dispensing medications, the absolute radical rise in certain conditions, the rise in chronic illnesses, and also the change in how we live today. And the two things are in correlation. And so when you look at all of that, what is it? It could be stress in one person's life. It could be the way that they're eating ultra-processed foods. It could be, for me personally, sleep is my big issue, yeah? It could be any number of these things, but all is integrated together. And all of these things, what they actually cause is inflammation in our body. And if we can get to the root cause of that and reduce inflammation by all these different techniques that the first panel talked about, 110%, we can prevent things manifesting down the line. And the earlier we get it, the better. You know, not just when we have the condition. And so Daniel has a PhD in inflammation. So every time we would meet, we would nerdy talk about inflammation, yeah? Because he knows how all these pathways work in the body, whatever. And so many times we said, maybe we should do something, maybe we should do something, maybe we should do something. And unfortunately, last year, my mum got really sick. She ended up with, I went home to see her in February for her birthday, because her and Cassie, my daughter, share a birthday. I always check her bloods every time she's home. I always read her bloods. Her bloods were perfect. 2 months later, we were not in the Galvin Hospital. And, for a kidney infection or a kidney stone, and she gets scanned, and we're told that she has grade 4 lymphoma. Like within 8 weeks, her bloods were perfect before that. And when I spoke to her hematologist, what happened? How could this happen? And, he explained the whole thing about we all have these lymphoma cells in our body, but then something happens, something turns, chronic inflammation, next thing it manifests, And I was like, how could we have prevented this? How could she have prevented it? And she does have type 2 diabetes, Talked about the diabetes, talked about nutrition, talked about whatever. And he said, if only there was something we could do to manage inflammation in our body. And that was the moment I just knew we have to do something. It no longer was about whether I had time to do it. Daniel always says to me, if you have the ability, you have the responsibility. So I phoned Daniel that night and said, we're going to do this. And that was it. And that's why we're here tonight.
And Daniel, what about you then? What sparked your interest in inflammation and wanting that to be your focus in your PhD?
Well, I've been thinking about this for a while, and we were kind of just talking. I have an experience in life and circumstances which have really instilled at a very early age a real passion, nearly obsession with health and science. I was born a very sick kid. I was born with VSD. I had open heart surgery when I was 5 years old. I was sick with pneumonia. I was in the hospital all of the time. And even at that age, I remember very clearly the understanding that there was a chance I wouldn't make it through open heart surgery. I will always remember when I was in, kindergarten, and my classroom was told that I was sick and I was in the hospital, and all the kids brought in cards for me because I was still laying in my hospital bed, and the teacher didn't give them proper instructions, and some of them were like, sorry, you're dying, and things like that along those lines.
Oh my God.
And so I was very early in life instilled with two really profound things, which was an appreciation for my life, that I never took it for granted. I faced my mortality very early, and I think that made me kind of grow up a bit quicker. But this really shaped my perspective, and that I wanted to do something really big with my life as well. I felt like the doctors who were able to open me up and give me the rest of my life back, they didn't do that for no reason. I was given this gift, and I intended to do something really positive and global with it. And two, it instilled me with a really undying desire and passion for science and health and wellness, because it just absolutely blew my mind that human people, just humans like us, could dedicate their lives to understanding how the heart works and have the ability to then open me up, fix my little tiny 5-year-old heart, and give me the rest of my life back. They were heroes to me. I will always remember them. Very funny. I don't even talk about this, but me and my moms talk about this, that like even my doctors, I had 3 cardiologists assigned to me, and doctors and surgeons. I swear on my life, they were Dr. White, Dr. Black, and Dr. Green. And I was like, am I in Clue? Like, what's even happening? Or Cluedo. But so I was pretty much set up from a very early age that I had a real big desire to help people, the same that I was helped, to help people get the most out of their lives and their health and their wellness, and to do something with the time that I was given.
And you certainly have. And you're among one of the top formulators here in this country. So what was different about this one? What really set this apart for you? Because this is the only one that you put yourself to personally. You were sort of in the background, but this one you're front and center, and thank goodness you are. What a personality. What a story.
I appreciate that. Well, thank you very much. And yes, like, I mean, when me and Oonagh were discussing this, and as you mentioned, I was, director of R&D at Revive Active for years and developed a Revive Active pipeline. And I'm very careful with what I do because I care really much and I have to have the opportunity. I'm actually someone who, I come from research. I come from science. Before I went in and I did my doctorate, I was working in the US pharmaceutical industry for a number of years. And that's really where my interest and passion kind of started, because I realized that so much of pharmaceuticals were underpinned by nutritional research. So nearly every American pharmaceutical company has an equally as big, if not larger, nutraceutical division. So this is really starting something for me. But as I talked to Oonagh, it was always from the outset, I would only do something again if I could do two things that are really important. It had to be different and it had to be better. We had to keep raising the bar, but we really needed to do something different compared to that. And that was a lot of the conception of @ONE, because research is expanding all of the time. Nutrient innovation is happening on a daily basis. It's something that I'm obsessed with, and Oonagh is extremely passionate, obsessed with as well. And we saw this massive opportunity and a huge gap that people weren't really addressing. So many things out there are really like a one-size-fits-all, even in terms of the day, how we function over the entire course of the day and evening. And that's just not how it is. And there was just so much opportunity to do something different, to bring different ingredients together in a different way in formulation. But above all else, paramount to everything, it was getting to the root of the problem, the core of what underpins nearly everything that goes wrong in our body, and that's inflammation. And that was really at the heart of what we started with the brand of @ONE.
Can you explain, you touched on it there a little, the circadian rhythm and the importance of that in our body systems?
Yes, exactly. And as I mentioned, there is kind of often like a one-size-fits-all, but that's not the case at all. In terms of even our 24-hour cycle, we have extremely different physiological needs from when we wake up and we're starting on our body, we're turning on our energy, our metabolism, we're getting our immune system ready to fight off any infections that we might be exposed to during the day, is very different from our physiological needs when we're going to sleep and rest at night. I mean, so much happens when we go to sleep, and we always talk about that. People think you just shut your eyes and that's it, and it's just black, and you just wake up and then your body turns on again. That's absolutely not the case. We always kind of talk that you nearly have like a day shift and a night shift in your biology and your physiology. And we're always concerned about supporting our day shift because that's what's going on when we're out and about. We want to, just be our best and be mentally focused and have the energy and all these things. But it's about supporting our night shift as well. I mean, there's so many things when you go to bed, that night shift just starts. There's so many things happening in your body for recovery. I mean, it is one of the best opportunities that your body goes in that recovery phase, that we're looking to increase our cytokine production to reduce inflammation. We're looking to clear out a lot of toxins. We start getting, as soon as we start going to sleep, we start getting increases in T cells and NK cells, a range of really essential immune cells, which are then preparing our immune system, recovering our immune system. It's an amazing opportunity, our physiology. That's when it becomes focused on starting to lower inflammation across our body, or at least attempting to, if your physiology has the right tools and resources and nutrients to do so. So there are very different needs from starting up and going to sleep. And we wanted to do something that, again, was very different and very comprehensive and takes a holistic approach, which is so important to the both of us, and develop something that really covered you all 24 hours from dawn to dawn. It's really working all through the day. The morning starts, helping to support all these things from energy, metabolism, immune system function, cognitive function, and the evening restore everything from sleep, recovery, relaxation. These are all so important. And immune system function as well, because when you're going to sleep, this is when your immune system is recovering, preparing itself for the next day. And I could sit here and talk an hour about clock proteins because I think they're so cool. But you even have little proteins in your body which degrade over a 24-hour period and are signaling to you, okay, it's sleep time, it's rest time, it's relaxation time. And these are signaling to your immune system and all these other departments in your body. If you think of your company like, your body like a company, there's all these different departments. It's like telling, the different departments, okay, get ready to recover. And that's often why people, especially shift workers who, we care so much about because they're constantly really pushing and straining their circadian cycle, switching day and night shift. And that's why they're so much more susceptible to sickness or infections, and then the recovery time can be slower because these clock proteins are trying to signal to our immune system that you're supposed to go into recovery. But if we're up and even if you're partying or out, this can leave you even more susceptible to an infection.
You said something to me at the start of the stage that I thought was so interesting. When you were in your 20s, you felt really low in yourself, your health was low, you were overweight, you had bad back issues. And what did you say to yourself that day that changed everything?
So I have to, give the context of this. I was 20 years old or 25 years old, and I was living the American lifestyle to the fullest in terms of I was not taking care of myself and I was just going 100 miles per hour all the time. I was working in the pharmaceutical industry. I was in the lab constantly. I also, at the same time, even though I probably didn't have time, was working a lot at the Philadelphia Franklin Institute, which is the Children's Science Museum. And I was always really passionate about trying to inspire generations of kids to get interested in science. But I was just pushing my body to the limits. I was driving everywhere. I was eating fast food. I was working constantly. And I will always remember I had this moment where I was driving home one time and I was just getting sick all the time. And I was starting to go to get really bad back pain. And I just felt awful in my body. And I was 25 years old. And I said to myself, I don't get it. I don't do anything. Why do I feel like this? And then it clicked. I don't do anything. I don't do anything to take care of myself in terms of, I don't do anything in considering what types of food I'm putting into, what kind of nutrition I need. I don't do anything in terms of your body wants to move. It wants to be active. It wants to be physical. That's when it feels its best. And I just was pushing all this to the side and it was having profound implications on my health. And that was kind of when I started turning the curb and I started realizing, and even during my time in the pharmaceutical industry, and then absolutely in time my PhD, I started experimenting on myself, really trying to figure out how I could come more in tune with my physiology. And I started kind of putting these things into my system, incorporating them into my daily life, just more conscious about the food, the nutrition I'm having, being more active. And it changed everything. And especially when I started taking that holistic approach. It wasn't just about diet, or it wasn't just about activity, it wasn't just about nutrition, it wasn't just about sleep or mental health, it was everything. And when you take that comprehensive approach, it is amazing the difference it can make in your life.
Yeah, this is a story you know only too well, my friend.
Oh, I do. I need all of you. I'm going to test all your theories and be like, actually...
I was saying to you earlier when we were chatting about, some of the things I was going to say to you, I often come back in your story to your sister saying your mom knew that something was different in you because you opened the bedroom window.
Yeah.
And I always think that speaks so much to self-worth, that because you were feeling so low, the way Daniel spoke, going 90, working hard, not taking care of yourself. But that day you decided, I deserve fresh air. And it can be as small as that, and that is so powerful.
Yeah, and at the time, I just thought I was opening a window. I was like, right. But it was a big thing for my mum, because she was like, okay, maybe there's something changing. And you're speaking about all the things you shouldn't be doing. Literally, my whole teens and 20s, exactly that. I was doing everything I shouldn't have been doing. And sometimes, even when I was sitting there, I was like, literally to Oonagh, I was like, what the hell am I here for? And as you were talking, I was like, these people are smart, Oonagh. What am I here for? And then it clicked. I was like, why do we automatically put ourselves back. You know, the reason I am here is because I'm trying to live and breathe the lifestyle that these guys are trying to tell us to do. And my background is I just found that my weight went completely out of control. And at my hardest moment, and I even hate even saying the number, because to me the number isn't my worth, it represents how I felt. I was so sad. And I was over 27 stone, and I felt everything. I couldn't fix it. I was chain smoking. I was working full time as an executive head chef. I had a massive team with me. I had been struggling with addiction in a casino. I had €85,000 worth of debt. So when somebody would say to me, "You should eat healthy," I'd be like, "Really?" And that's going to solve it. I just felt so overwhelmed. And the reason why I like saying that now is because sometimes you can sit there, and even when things were said, you can, I don't know, is it just me? But you nearly feel guilty, and you're like, am I doing enough? That it was the small step of that window that day, opening it, going to Cork, extremely going into a gym, being like, well, tell me what plan I can lose weight on. That they were like, this is a 6-week plan. But I was like, okay, what'll I get from it? That it wasn't, I couldn't see the wood from the trees. So that's why I suppose these kind of talks, especially for me, is beneficial, because it reminds me that it's the chopping the wood, it's carrying the water, it's the simple things every single day that I'm trying to do for myself in the form of self-care. And my whole life changed by that simple day in the gym. And I thought it would never be fixed. And it is. And I'm slowly getting there. And I also thought, I said it to you today, Oonagh, I was like, it'll be a year. I'll be done in a year. I'll be inside in Zara. I'm sorted. You know, I'll be gone. I'll be like, sorry, when am I going for surgery for like what things to be lifted back up and stuff? I was like, but it's actually taken me 6 years, and I'm thrilled, because the slower road for me is the better road, because I'm learning my worth slowly but surely from every single meal, every single step, and every single thing that goes wrong. I just learn from it, and I'm like, right, let's drive this on.
And I think what's also amazing about you is you're having fun with it, because I think we think if we're going to, sorry Jens, if we're going to follow your diet, we won't be having fun. And we can have fun. Jens, you have fun, right? It's enjoyable looking after
Later
yourself.
on in Coppers, I'll be like, I told you. I told you Red Bull is good for you. Get an @1 with a shot. No.
It's not all restriction and calorie counting and beating yourself over the back. You get out for the walk because you enjoy it.
Yeah.
You know, you eat well because it makes you feel good.
Yeah, and that's what's after taking me so many years. It was the unlearning the habits that I learned from years of, like, you know, restriction, like punishment, you know, take everything off the plate, and secretly eat in the background then, because I'm like, I'm starving. And like, it's learning like that, you know, is the vegetables are not the problem. It was, because, like, you know, I suppose I have to work on a calorie deficit for me to get the weight down. But I also want to eat gorgeous volume food. But I know if I track the cucumber, I'd be like, well, I could also have a Freddo, so I'm going to leave the cucumber off. So I need to figure out, hang on a minute, is this actually healthy? And that's what I've unlearned, and it's the movement. Like, I think I used to go into the gym, and people would be like, oh, you need to, they're like, oh, I'm working off a Mars bar or a Chinese. I'm like, from what year? Like, what's going on? When are we working this off from? So I'm like, this is not going to work. So I need to work out from now. It's the water, it's the sleep, and it's the connection. Because often every time I did a journey, I'd be like, that's it. I'm never meeting anyone again for a cup of coffee. If I am, it's a green tea. We're going to do 75 kilometers. And then I was exhausted. And people would be like, oh, you're gone off the scales again. But it was all about finding what, like that, your yoga. I had to find out what worked for me. And it was to have fun, to move because for my mood, because I found that I focused on this all my life and I put this down when I should have been trying to bring this up and figuring that part out. And, you know, it's the water, it's the extra, it is the colour and the plate. And even when I say it, I'm like, oh God, am I actually saying that aloud? It's the food I eat, it makes me feel great. And it's just, I think, taking your time. We do so many time scales, 6 weeks to a wedding, let's go for this. And for what I do is I focus on the exercise I can do today, but I'm not beating myself up for the exercise I didn't do yesterday. Can't change anything about it. And for me, my favourite part of this whole journey was exercise was for me. I didn't need to be a certain shape or size. That it's for me to go out and actually enjoy a walk and to move because I deserve it. Instead of being like, you need to move now because you need to lose weight and you're a bold person, that it's the whole approach.
Yeah.
And it's my favourite thing in the world.
And doing it because you love yourself, not because you hate yourself, because it's so unmotivating to start from there.
It's so true. And every time I did a journey in the past, like I was flat out, lads. I had so many WhatsApp groups. I'd be like, this is it, I'm telling you now, lads. I'm out the gap, like I'm ready. And then ghost everybody for months. Like, don't you dare ask me about my journey. And turn on them. And I realised very quickly I will never hate myself into somebody I love. I have to love myself into somebody I love. And I quickly, it was about 6 months into the whole journey, I went into the gym and I was like, extremes. I was like, Emma, and she was like, yes. I was like, I'm an athlete. And she was like, are you? Great. And I was like, no, don't laugh. And I was like, 'cause I'm doing the best of what I have, and that's what an athlete does. And we're going to drive on from that. And that was the day it all changed. Because I stopped going in being like, I am the person in the gym someone's going to take a photo of. They're going to laugh at me. I'm not wearing a sports bra. I'm not wearing, like, I have to wear a t-shirt over my sports bra. Fair play to you if you don't. But I'm like, put on a top. That I'm like, if your mother seen you. But I'm like, don't judge. And then I just started going in and I started to train with intention. That it wasn't weight loss. It was my mind deserved to feel happy. And as much as I possibly could, that's what I did. And it was like that. Then slowly but surely, I was finishing my boxing session and I was like, oh my God, that was fab. And I was like, oh wait. In a few months' time, I'm going to give you bad boys up. And I knew my pattern, so I got rid of the cigarettes. And it was just bit by bit. And I think that we have to realise that sometimes life gets busy. Life gets so hard, it can get overwhelming, that the easier option is to slip back into what makes you feel comfortable. And it's that moment when you go, but do I deserve a bit more? And just to ask myself that question and just to reset and start again. And since then, I've lost nearly 11 stone. I've cleared my debt, given up smoking. I've written 2 books. It's class. And it was that simple window being opened and a step into the gym, that it's the small changes matter. It's not the big ones.
Yeah.
And definitely it's people around you. You need people that will understand when it goes wrong and doesn't judge.
So where do you stand then on supplements? Because I'm sure you have a huge following. Yeah.
Get rid of them.
God. But I really know from you that you don't put your name to something that you don't really use, you don't really believe in.
Yeah. So in the middle of it all then, I set up an Instagram page because I was like, I'll just set it up and I'll document it quietly and then I'll announce it to the world, and it's after backfiring a small bit. So about 300,000 people later, I'm like, hi, who are we? Please don't follow what I'm doing. Do as I say, not as I do. But no, it's very true. I won't put my name to something because you can very easily get caught in the world of that. And I'll be working with you guys for years and you know how painful it is because you're like, okay, there's 4 things of a whole website you look at. I'm like, that's the 4 things I love. So it's very important for me if I'm taking a supplement, number 1, it's science-backed. Number 2, I can stand over it, that if I am putting it up, someone can say, well, because that's the thing about the internet. There's always someone being like, hold on a second, you're making a mistake. So I have to be very sure that when I'm saying something and I think it works, that it's definitely something I believe in. So definitely. And I do think supplements, but I love how you touched on it, Mary, that it is the water, it is the sleep, it is the food, it is the exercise. Because I know in the past, when I was really down, when I was really struggling, I would have paid anything for that magic moment to make me feel happy. It wasn't to feel good. So I would have given my money to anything. We have to put the groundwork in beside it, and then they get supplemented on top. And that's why I really do always resonate with doing it, because I'm like, will this change my life? It won't make me lose weight, calorie deficit will, but it will help me with my sleep. It'll help me wake up in the morning. And that's what I find, that it's all the pieces of the cake that have to work for you. And I just find anything that's easy, that if I can win the morning, I'm sorted. I feel like I start off very quickly. And anything by addition, if I can just add on things, because it's all restriction and it's for me, that's what works.
Yeah.
The most.
Adding in things to take care of yourself. It's so simple and yet so powerful. And I mentioned Oonagh and Daniel, the reviews around the place. These are genuine reviews. And one that really struck me, I must have been doom scrolling one night late. But you said that there was a woman who had said, taking that time for myself is huge. So starting my day with a little ritual that's just for me, and then ending my day with time for me. Like, people just aren't taking that time. Mary's right. People aren't taking the 5 minutes to drink a supplement. Feels huge to them.
Absolutely, and especially I think at night time as well. Tricia just touched on it as well. You're trying to unwind. You're trying to get a good night's sleep. We know the benefits of sleep. We know that we want to get into like a deep recovery sleep, that whole or REM sleep, whatever. But what do we do at night time? We come home, we're exhausted, we start doom scrolling or whatever, comparing ourselves to everybody. Next thing, like our cortisol's going up, we can't sleep, you've got the blue light or whatever. So what we're really trying to do here is not only, obviously nourish your body with the right nutrients that your physiology actually needs, but it's actually to establish those little rituals as well. So when we say about the nighttime one, we try to say, get yourself a nighttime routine, like an hour before bed. Take a moment, do your yoga, do your deep breathing, do whatever the thing is that is going to take your cortisol and adrenaline down. Give yourself permission for that time. And then obviously what we've put into the nighttime formulation is not just products, because before, we had at one on the market, it was magnesium that I was recommending for sleep, and maybe a bit of ashwagandha if people had high cortisol. It's not just about the products, the ingredients to actually help you fall asleep and help to relax you to fall asleep. It's like Daniel said, when you close your eyes, your body gets really busy, really busy. You release human growth hormone, and as a child and as a teenager, that's helping you grow. But actually, as an adult, that's really helping your body repair. So we want to get that release of that hormone. So we need to get into a nice deep sleep to allow that to actually happen. So that's why it's really important to relax you. And we have a number of different ingredients to work on a number of different pathways to make that happen, so you can get into a deep REM sleep. And that's why a lot of people say, oh my God, my sleep scores are getting really high. I'm starting to have vivid dreams. I'm starting to remember things. But that's a good indicator that you're in REM sleep. But then the majority of the ingredients in that one is not actually about falling asleep. It's actually about supporting your body with the right nutrients to actually reduce inflammation when you're asleep. So it's about the recovery piece that Daniel talked about. It's about really high antioxidants that mop up all these free radicals that are in your body that cause the inflammation at nighttime. And then, we have looked really hard at the evidence to show which ingredients are very well researched, that are science-backed, that have cardioprotective, properties, that actually take inflammation down in your cardiac system, take inflammation down in your neurological system, so help to rebuild your synapses, the likes of uridine in there, the likes of other ingredients that will help with, because as you can see from our little busy model, like lots of people are experiencing, inflammation maybe in their cardiac system, maybe in their gut, maybe in their skin. So we've looked at nutrients that will help reduce inflammation in each of these systems to help support your body to recover as you sleep. And then in the morning time, as Daniel said, we all focus on energy, improving your immune system, improving your skin, hair and nails, improving your metabolism during the day. We tend to focus much more on daytime supplements, but I'm most proud actually about the nighttime product, because without a good night's sleep and without that proper recovery, you aren't going to, you could sleep for 8 hours, but you might not feel refreshed the next morning. It's actually about getting good quality sleep where your body is able to repair when you sleep. So,
that's what sets it apart.
Yeah, I think it's what sets it apart really is there's a few things. When we sell lots of different vitamins and supplements in pharmacy and in health food stores as well. There's a few things about supplements. Not all supplements are the same. When myself and Daniel would look at this, there's 5 things really. 5 things that we want, and probably 2 things we don't want. We don't want artificial ingredients, because generally speaking, they cause inflammation in the body. And secondly, we don't want any, stimulants that give you a false, high or whatever. But the 5 things that we definitely do want is we want a proper range of nutrients that supports different pathways in our body, and hence the different ingredients in that one. We want the proper forms of those ingredients, because so many vitamins and supplements on the market have synthetic forms of ingredients, which are really cheap, And this is why you might have a supplement on the market that's 50 quid and you might have another supplement at 5 or 10 or whatever. They use synthetic ingredients that usually can come from the petroleum industry, for example, cyanocobalamin versus methylcobalamin, which is both vitamin B12, but they come from different sources. We don't want the cheap synthetic ingredients. So we have no cheap synthetic ingredients in here, all natural. The next thing is the dose. Yeah, we really need an optimal dose because, again, if you have a small amount of a particular ingredient, take vitamin B12, you know, if you have vitamin B12 in a supplement, you could say it gives you energy. But it could be a minuscule type of vitamin B12 that's never going to give you any energy in that supplement. So we have gone for the optimal range of everything. The next thing is probably what myself and Daniel talk about most is the synergistic effects of nutrients working together. You could have, for example, vitamin D would be a really good example. Vitamin D on its own will help with so many functions in your body, but vitamin D needs to be paired with K2 for proper bone health, you know. Vitamin D will help the absorption of calcium into your bloodstream, but you need K2 to get it actually into your bones then. So we have looked at each one of the nutrients to see what other ingredients, maybe it's a micronutrient, yeah, that's needed to be added to this to actually get proper results. Coenzyme Q10, another one would be piperine. You need piperine with that to actually absorb coenzyme Q10 properly as an antioxidant, yeah? So we've looked at all of this to see what else can we add to this, that there's scientific background behind it to make sure that this ingredient works properly. And then the last thing is the availability, the bioavailability of a product, how best it is absorbed into your system. Because, you know, our guts are very busy, yeah? And if you do a big loading dose at there's only certain cells that can actually absorb that nutrient across, you know, and they can sometimes get really loaded up, yeah? And also, if they're not broken down properly, they can't be absorbed properly. So would this have been easier to put into a capsule or into a tablet? Absolutely, because then we wouldn't have all the challenges with taste, yeah. But would that have been the right thing to do? Absolutely not, because you wouldn't see the effects properly, because it's much more effective in a sachet form, yeah, in a sachet form. So we have looked at, I suppose, those 5 things that make a really good supplement, and then make sure we're negating the other 2 things. But at the core of this is really, the key thing about this is, yes, it'll give you the nutrients, but actually we have a real blend of anti-inflammatory ingredients that are science-backed that actually gets to the root cause of the problem, to reduce that inflammation so that you are preventing various different things happening down the road.
Yeah, amazing. Well, I'm really glad you 2 fabulous geeks came together. Aren't they an absolute match made in heaven? Like, they really are. Daniel, can I ask, because I think sometimes at events like these, there is so much information for people. What's the one thing you'd like them to take home with them? Apart from the goodie bag of At One, which they all have.
That's, you know, you only get one life. You know, it's the most valuable gift that will ever be given. And there is never too late a time. There's just start taking little small steps. I talk all the time, you know, I've been on the road, you know, with Revive Active and just talking about nutrition for nearly a decade or over a decade now. And it's very rare that I ever encounter anyone speaking that doesn't want to improve their wellness, that doesn't have an interest in nutrition, that doesn't want to feel better, you know, just in general in their day to day. But I completely understand and sympathize that you can walk into any pharmacy or health food store and it just seems like this insurmountable mountain. Where do I begin? There's so many things, and you feel like if you can't do it right, then why not do it at all? But that's absolutely not the case. I mean, small steps, any little thing we can do for our body is beneficial. And I would just recommend that, you know, you just take those first little steps. Try to incorporate little things. Even if it's just, you know, just trying to eat one new fruit or something like a week, that taking those things can have a profound effect, but it's never too late.
Yeah, absolutely amazing. Well, look, it's been my absolute pleasure to be joined by this incredible panel. So Tricia, thank you so much, Daniel and Oonagh, and thank you all for listening. But I want to give the last word to the lady herself, Oonagh O'Hagan.
Well, like, all I just want to say is, first and foremost, thank you so much for supporting myself and Daniel on this journey. It's new to us, I guess. We've never taken a step like this on our own before, and we've had a challenge with stock because we just didn't expect the demand, I guess. And I just want to say, you know, anybody in this room is either We really wanted to invite our customers first and foremost here tonight. That's so important. Anybody who had, purchased on that first day without even tasting the product, or, just really believed in us and believed in what we were doing. So I just want to say a huge thank you for that. And secondly, there are many, many people in this room who have been personal supporters of us, who've been involved in bringing this to life, whether it be Joanne Cassels and Bernard down there, like all of you and all of the medics that spoke here, and Jen, and, we really look up to these guys because they talk our language. And even as medics and as doctors, sometimes you think that they just, are interested in prescribing or whatever, but not at all. There is a real shift now towards lifestyle medicine and blending that along with the pharmaceuticals, because that is, like I said, in Pharmacy 360, that's where the real magic happens. So I would just say to you that anybody in this room, you may have a chronic illness, or you may be worried about developing a chronic illness because maybe somebody in your family has something and you're scared of maybe developing that. Honestly, your pharmacist, your GP, your consultant, we're all in the driving seat, or not the driving seat, in the passenger seat. Maybe the pharmacist might be in the back seat actually, or the boot, right? You are in the driving seat of your own health. The choices that you make, I think what Mary said about choices, are fundamental to where you're going to get to in your health. These little small steps, the food that you eat, the choices that you do for your sleep, the choices that you have for reducing stress in your life, just taking that moment out and finding your yoga, they will set you up for success. So you have the power in your hand, not anybody else. It's not down to me or Mary or Daniel, whatever. It's you as the power. And if there's anybody who's living truth of that, it is Tricia Lewis. Like, she absolutely inspires me every day to keep going. So it's never too late, as Daniel said. It's never too late to start. The younger you start, though, the longer you will have here, So all my ask is, go out there and spread the message to your loved ones. Tell them that their health future lives in their own hands. Tell them about inflammation, because I think that we're only starting to understand this silent inflammation in our body now, and explain to them, let them look it up, let them, research it, take the information from, credible sources or whatever, because the quicker you get this information, honestly, the more that you're going to be able to solve problems for yourself, and the less pain you will have for not only yourself, but for your family members in the future as well. So the power is within yourself, is what I would say. Yeah.
No problem.
Well, thank you so much, everybody. I'm so sorry we went over time, but as you could see, there were great stories, great information. But thank you so much for being here tonight, for all of your attention, and we wish you safe home and health, wealth and happiness, of course. Thank you very much.